Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a My 2 Cent video for this week, for the week of January 11th to the 17th, 2026, where I take a look at a couple of stories that caught my attention and give you my thoughts and my opinion about them. And we got 3 stories to cover this week, including rumors of a possibility we could see a SW2 Lite or OLED in any way, at least according to that's the claim to be exact, though. GameStop unfortunately has made some layoffs though, and of course comments made by the Nintendo president regarding basically the possibility of a price increase for the Switch 2, and a report about its stock apparently taking a hit and everything. If you're interested where I got the source of these informations, links will be in the description down below, so when you're watching this on either YouTube or Patreon. And of course the timestamps will also be there as well if there are certain parts of this video you wish to skip to and all. But before we get started, I like to do what I like to call the quick My 2 cents, stories that kind of caught my attention, but I'm not going to go into a huge amount of details. The first one has to do with a video put out by a former executive producer, basically looking at the postmortem of Anthem. As some of you are aware, Anthem recently shut down and all. That was the game that supposedly was at the time hyped up by a new game from BioWare and everything, but it never really took off and all. And there were certainly some criticisms about the game itself, including, the always online approach. Some have felt incomplete or didn't work or anything, depending on who you were asking the question to be exact. And there was an attempt to do an Anthem 2.0, sort of a reboot of it, but it seemed that EA was not willing to continue with that game and decided to just let BioWare move on to the next project, which eventually would be Dragon Age Vanguard, which got a mixed reception on that one. Especially the claim was that originally that was supposed to be a multiplayer title, but went back to a single player title. So the question about BioWare's future still remains up in the air at this moment. We know they're working on like a next Mass Effect game, so whatever happens to that one remains to be seen. But if the next Mass Effect game becomes, a flop or doesn't perform as well, I would not be surprised if EA shuts BioWare down. We've seen this pattern before in terms of EA's history, so time will ultimately tell if that is the case though. But still, very unfortunate what happened to Anthem, but then again, you're not guaranteed success if you have your game become sort of a live service kind of approach and everything. We now learned, or at least there's been a report coming out, that a Call of Duty game has been mentioned now in one of like Nintendo, or sort of a launcher code to be exact. There have been some rumors about Call of Duty coming to the Switch and the Switch 2 for quite some time. There were reports coming out that the game is finished or something, or a version of it is finished though, and that we could see it soon. Whether that's true or not, that remains to be seen at this time. It also remains to be seen if it's going to be Black Ops 7, the current one, or maybe a port of any of the past Call of Duty games, or even the possibility of Warzone making its way possibly to the Switch 2. Now, whether the game does well on the Switch system or not, that remains to be seen. Warzone, it'll be interesting to see how that one fares if that does make its way to Switch 2 and everything, and I wouldn't be surprised if it takes up a lot of space. We've seen how a lot of these Call of Duty games, well, let's just say they take up a lot of storage space and everything like that. So it'll be interesting to see if that is the case with the Switch 2 version of what kind of Call of Duty game we will get from Activision, Blizzard, and Microsoft and all. We also learned that supposedly is the system that Night Dive is still working on the System Shock remake, which hasn't gone over the best of response, as there have been some updates here and there, but still there's been some reports that the latest update may have not been that great for the game and all. But Night Dive Studio is supposedly working on it, and they're trying to push to get a 60 frames per second mode for the game, but when it was launched in a bad state and all, that kind of can hurt your reputation to a certain degree. So we'll see if Night Dive can fix this System Shock remake, but right now it doesn't seem to be going over very well to be exact. And last but not least, we have learned that High on Life 2 will be coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 after all. There were reports of this game rumored at one point, including supposedly a listing that popped up and all, but it does seem to indicate that has been confirmed. It's also been reported that the Switch 2 version will be using a game key card, which will be different than what the Switch 1 version did, which was run by Limited Run Game that did the full game in the cartridge. That version eventually got a Switch 2 version with a free update, and supposedly Limited Run Games will be having the Switch 2 edition of High on Life in an actual Switch 2 cartridges and all. So it's a little bit unfortunate if this is true that High on Life 2 is going to be a game key card, but on the other hand, I did hear somewhere that game was 90 gigabytes, which if that is true though, then I could see the justification of using the game key card and all, at least in this kind of a situation and everything. But still, I do enjoy the first one. I thought that one was pretty good. It will be very interesting to see how the second one plays out and all. And then the movie and TV show part of the Quick My 2 Cent, we are learning that Amazon has greenlighted a Fallout reality show where supposedly contestants live in a vault or everything. I mean, I don't know. This sounds like a bad idea, at least from my view and all, but we'll have to wait and see. I mean, the TV show has done pretty well, though. I'm currently watching the second season of Fallout and everything, but I'm not sure about this one. It sounds like they're trying to milk it and everything, but we'll see. Maybe this game show or this reality show will be a success. Maybe it will fail. We'll have to wait and see how this all plays out and everything. We also have a second trailer for Monarch Season 2, Monarch Legacy of Monster, set for late February. I will say though, I did enjoy the first season and all. I like how the fact that it took place after the events of, I believe, 2014's Godzilla movie, and I'm very curious to see how this one is going to play out and everything for the second season. It does seem to indicate a new threat or something like that, and it does seem that Russell Crowe's character will make an appearance. Looks like he's still going to be in the second season also. I'm very curious to see how Monarch Legacy of Monster is going to play out for a season 2, and whether and where this would take place in sort of like what would be described as the Monsterverse and all, the universe of Godzilla and King Kong. So I'm very curious to see this one. I like the first season, so I'm looking forward to seeing this one on Apple TV and all. We also got a new teaser trailer for basically the Doomsday, for Avengers Doomsday and all. This one had Nemo. It also had basically the Black Panther and the Wakanda, and it actually showed Ben Grimm from the Fantastic Four First Step movie. So it seems that this connects to the scene from the end of Thunderbolt, where it showed the Fantastic Four ship coming close to Earth and everything. So I am very curious to see how that interaction is going to play out when the Avengers Doomsday movie comes out, though. I mean, it was a good trailer, but I would say not as good as, say, the X-Men one, the one with, Professor X and Magneto, and even, Cyclops and everything. Maybe not on that same scale, but still, it does make me hyped for this movie. There has been reports about the possibility it could hit the $2 billion mark or join the $2 billion club, but I would say it's too early to tell at this time if that is going to happen or not. We also learned that basically from the Direct, though, that it looks like Marvel does have plans for its rebooted, Netflix characters, in which they decided to bring those over and still consider those Netflix series as canon, as part of the MCU, which I thought that was pretty good. I think that was great and everything. And it looks like there's more plans, to bring in, Jessica Jones and all. No word about Luke Cage at this moment, though. We know that Daredevil 1 and 3 are in the works. We know Jessica Jones 1 is in the work, and a Punisher special is in the works, though. But no word on, I think Iron Fist and everything, or if we'll get another Defenders or something like that at this time. But I do hope they do bring those over, though. I like that gritty down-to-earth, like M-rated type of approach they did, especially with Daredevil. And also I'm hoping we get more of that, especially since the end of season 1 seems to them building up towards a confrontation with Wilson Fisk, who now became the mayor of New York City and all. So that's definitely something I'm keeping an eye out on. We also saw, although supposedly Paramount lost the first round, Paramount brought a lawsuit against Warner Brothers over basically, Netflix buying and everything. From what I understand, they've lost the first round, at least for now, though. I'm sorry, but this seems more like, not only does this make Larry Edison more like a spoiled child and everything, but it comes off as basically saying, if I can't have it, you can't have it either, though. And it seems like every single time Paramount tries to convince, it seems that Warner Brothers is still standing firm, at least for now, with Netflix and everything. I'm still in the camp believing Netflix will eventually get Warner Brothers. I still remain mixed on the idea of Netflix buying Warner Brothers, but I also have issues with Paramount getting Warner Brothers, whether it's for political reasons or for other reasons as well, though. So I have some serious issues about Paramount, especially under the current leadership and all, getting Warner Brothers and all. So we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. I still believe Netflix will get Warner Brothers in the end, but time will ultimately tell if that is the case or not. And we do also have learned that Netflix has sort of changed the deal a bit and now are offering an all cash approach. That will be interesting if that plays out, if investors or anything like that go, or the people basically accept that offer or not. So we'll have to wait and see about that. We also learned that Godzilla Minus Zero, or Godzilla Minus One, if I'm hearing that correctly, is set for a November release this year, though. I did get to see the first one. I think it was called Minus One or Minus Zero. I'm sorry if I'm getting the names incorrectly or anything like that. And I enjoyed that one on the BZAC. Obviously, it's a little different from the Monsterverse and everything like that, and it seems to stick more towards the traditional Godzilla movies that some folks may have liked when those originally came out. But I still enjoyed it nevertheless, including the setting, which took place post-World War II Japan and everything. And I'm very curious to see how this one will play out indeed. I saw the first one on Netflix. I might see this one in theaters if I get the chance and everything. So this one I will keep an eye out, though. And last but not least, during an interview with Nintendo's president, they certainly seem to be pushing more towards future plans for movies and animated videos, which, given the success that the Super Mario Brothers movie has done very well, I'm not really shocked and everything like that. Who knows how the Zelda live-action Zelda movie will do, though. I'm still mixed on them doing it live-action, but we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out for that one. But they haven't ruled out possibly doing an anime in the future, which I would be down with any of their IPs taking an animated form. Zelda certainly is one example, to even Kid Icarus, which I remember they did some animation promotion with that in terms of build-up for Kid Icarus Uprising from the Nintendo 3X years ago and all. So I would be down with an anime feature if they ever do that, though. I think it would fit very well. We've seen that with F-Zero and Kirby. I think was called Kirby Right Back at Ya. So I think the potential for an anime one is certainly there indeed and all. Okay, with the Quick My 2 Cent part now done, along with the movie and TV show part of the Quick My 2 Cent, we'll get started with our first story. And this one has to do with an interview with the Nintendo president, along with what I mentioned about in the movie and TV. And this had to do with the Switch 2 over a potential price increase. Now, we've seen a lot of the consoles recently seen a price increase, and a lot of that seemed to go, there have been several factors, at least, to say the least, though. Part of it is the tariffs to a certain extent, but a lot of it is this push for these, AI data centers, which certainly has eaten up a lot of the RAM prices and all. And we've seen some increases from consoles, even with, from Microsoft. So supposedly Sony did become, so the claim is more prepared for a situation like this. Well, it does seem to indicate there have been some questions about could we see the Switch 2 get a price increase, though, because we saw how much the system cost at launch, and while it certainly wasn't bad, at least in my view, though, it was certainly much higher than what the Switch 1 was, although most could argue that some of the stuff in the Switch 2 may have justified the price point for it. Whether you agree with that or not, that certainly is debatable indeed. Anyway, in an article from Nintendo Life, it reads that, quote, in an interview with Kyoto Shimbun, if I'm saying the name correctly, Nintendo president has remained coy on any potential product price increase, simply saying, I can't comment on the hypotheticals. Seems like a pretty understandable statement to make. The president won't want to cause any panic by insinuating that a price point may indeed come up, though. It's worth noting that this Kyoto's Shimbun article is locked behind a Patriots Richmond Mall, so the kind folks at Nintendo Patent Watch had highlighted some of the key points in the interview. In addition to the president's comment on price rise, he also noticed that the current memory price, which is on the rise thanks to the huge need for AI chips, will have no immediate impact on Nintendo's financial performance, but it will nevertheless monitor the situation closely. So do I think a price increase will probably happen for the Switch 2? I would say I wouldn't be surprised if that is the case. I can't predict when it will happen or anything like that, but I would not be shocked indeed, though. So I kind of view it as it's not a case of if a price increase is going to happen. It's more of a case of when that price increase will happen indeed, especially with the whole AI data center and a lot of these RAMs chips being used for it, though. I simply just cannot rule out that possibility, though, and that's something I think consumers are going to have to take in mind, especially for those who are thinking of getting a Switch 2 and all. I understand some might wait for a big deal and everything like that, but I just would not be surprised if Nintendo raises the price of the Switch 2 and everything. So don't be shocked if you see a price increase, though. I know not everybody will be a fan of it, though, and I can understand you're displeased about that, but I just would not be shocked if that's happened indeed. We also basically saw that basically the stock really, I would say, took a hit at least this month, though, as it reports that Nintendo stock in Japan is sliding. Basically saying all-time high was 14,795 yens in August 2025 and closed at 9,950 yens today, so a negative 33% in 5 months. Investors are spooked by possible price hike, lack of first-party hits, and the US-EU hardware discount during the holidays. So does this mean Nintendo's doomed and all? I really don't think they are, though. I mean, yeah, it is a bit unfortunate it's taken a hit and everything, but I don't think this is the end of Nintendo or the Switch 2 or anything like that. I do think it is possible Nintendo may have to rethink some of their strategy. That's a possibility, and that's something I can't rule out and all. But I don't signal this as this is the end for Nintendo and all. I do think that more than likely they'll find a way to bounce back indeed and all. So I'm not as worried about this as much as some on the internet are making it sound like it is. And I mean, again, stocks will always go up and down, though, and you just have to be careful when putting your money in the stock market in general, though. I understand for a lot of folks it's to make money, and that's true, but you also have to be ready to weather out when the market is up or down. It could be up on one day, it could be down the next day. So you just have to be very careful when putting your money in the stock market in general. But I'm not as worried about this. Do I think it's something that Nintendo will have to address? Absolutely. I'm not going to ignore that in any way, but I'm not as hugely bothered by this at all. So overall, though, I know Nintendo is not saying a price increase is going to happen for the Switch 2, but I just wouldn't be shocked if it does happen, to be exact, though, okay? Like I said, I understand not everyone's a fan of it, but I just would not be surprised if it does happen. And the stock dropping, though, while dropping negative 33% is certainly bad. I won't deny that though. I don't view this as a signal as this is the end of Nintendo or the end of the Switch 2 and all though. But like I said, it may require Nintendo to rethink some of their approach going into 2026 and all. That is a possibility, although. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 2. And this one has to do with, unfortunately, more layoffs, this time with GameStop and all. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of my 2 cent video, and for this one, this has to do with GameStop in general, and some unfortunate news indeed. Now, GameStop is sort of in I like to view it sort of like in an odd position. There are those who like to hate on GameStop, and there are certainly some justifications for it though, including some of the decisions that they've made over the years, including ranging from investing in NFTs and meme coins and everything, to the whole insider trading situation a couple years ago with GameStop in general being caught in the middle of this though. But there has been some cases that not everybody has been proud of some of the policies or some of the decisions GameStop has made. Now, so far, I've shopped at GameStop before, at least the ones I've gone to, and I haven't really ran into any issues or anything. I'm not saying there aren't those folks out there who have run into certain issues, though. I can understand if some folks certainly did, though, but as far as the ones that I've gone to at the very least, I haven't run into any issues, at least as far as I'm aware of. Well, recently, it seems to indicate that GameStop seems to be looking at closing a lot of stores and everything like that, with an update regarding the situation in New Zealand revolving around EB Games in general. In an article from Nintendo Life, it reads, basically, according to a new report from Polygon, however, GameStop has decided to kick off 2026 by shutting hundreds of its stores in the US. News of such closures appears to come quite shocked to the employees, with signs being hastily pasted to the storefront confirming the news. To add insult to injuries, the same signs offer up an extra 20% on trade-ins if customers head to an alternative GameStop location. Many customers have reportedly noticed that some stores closed have left them with few alternatives, with one Reddit commentator saying that their nearest store is now 1.5 hours away. It is estimated that up to 296 stores closed in the first week of 2026, with even well-performing locations being given the chops. It seemed likely that such drastic actions is somewhat linked to the recent announcement that CEO Ryan Cohen could bag a pay package worth of astounding $35 billion, but only if the retailer is able to reach a market cap of $100 billion. This is roughly 10 times its current value at $9.3 billion, so it's a pretty wild target. The announcement clarifies that Cohen receives no guaranteed pay, no salary, no cash bonus, and no stock that vests simply over time, with compensation being at risk. It's not a case of all or nothing, mind you, with compensation available in 9 tranches or portions. The first is available if GameStop achieves a market cap of $20 billion, with each substantial tranche requirement and an additional $10 billion in value, all the way up to $100 billion. So even if GameStop managed only to reach $20 billion, Cohen will still earn billions in shares. There's also been reports from RNZ that GameStop is also considering ending its EA game business in New Zealand, which means the closure of 38 stores in the region. They also basically had an update on that, as it confirmed that all 38 stores in this location in New Zealand will close at the end of the month on January 31st, 2026. This includes the closure of distributing centers, which will shut down in February, with numerous third parties reportedly approaching the company after news about the possible closure went public. Apparently, they did not present any proposal or solution to keep the business sustained in New Zealand. The letter sent to New Zealand's EB staff on Wednesday did not mention anything about the future of the 336 Australian stores currently in operation. However, the company said there may be opportunities for New Zealand employees to join EB Games in Australia. So definitely not great news for GameStop in general, but GameStop has been reported been struggling for quite some time, and I do wonder how long they can stay operative at all, and to the point where it's just like they're gone for good. And I think a lot of it is that we're seeing a lot of people, embrace the all digital. I know there's some who haven't, but there has been more push for that, to even buying from other places like Amazon for in general though. So a lot of people are being affected about this and hearing about this payout or for the CEO just adds it makes him feel like he is the villain. And we saw this similar to what happened when Bobby Kotick ran Activision Blizzard, where they laid off a lot of employees, but he got a big bonus or paycheck, which, I can see why not everybody was a fan of Bobby Kotick, indeed and all. So this one I'm not really surprised though. I do hope a lot of these employees are able to get back on their feet, or at least try to find another job and everything. So, but still great bad news indeed. And asking folks to take a picture of this sign and take it to the nearest GameStop. When someone is claiming the nearest store is 1.4 hours away, that's technically not possible though. So I can see why not everybody is a fan of this, to be exact and all. So overall, not a great start for GameStop and everything. Sometimes I do feel like GameStop is on life support, and it's only a matter of time before something happens or something breaks, whether this is, the end of GameStop for good and everything. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to our third and final part. And this one has to do with a report coming out of some folks may have found what could be a push, or shall I say, claims of a Switch Lite or switch to OLED, or Switch 2 Lite, Switch to OLED, to be exact. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with our third and final part of our My 2 Cent video. And for this one, we're going to be taking a look at a report that indicates that we could see a Switch 2 Lite or Switch 2 OLED, or both, to be exact though. Now, during the Switch 1 life cycle and all, we did get basically two new versions of the Nintendo Switch and all. Now, before then, there were rumors about possibly Nintendo doing like a Switch Pro and everything. And while Nintendo had basically did think about it for at least at some time, they eventually forego doing that kind of approach, different to what Sony did when they did the PS4, PS4 Pro, to the PS5 and PS5 Pro in general. What we did get was basically a Switch 1 Lite, which was basically just the Switch 1 only in handheld form. It couldn't be docked or anything. And of course, we did get a Switch 1 that was an OLED version, which also basically had like an Ethernet port and everything. So there were rumors about that being in the Switch Pro, and while that part turned out to be true, the Switch Pro part didn't. But we did eventually get two different versions of the Switch 1 during its life cycle, but not close to basically at launch and everything. And it does, and now recently someone found something that seemed to indicate that we could see something similar like that happening with the Switch 2 in general. In an article from Nintendo Life, it reads, the discovery of got folks chatting about a potential new Switch 2 model. The discovery comes via BlueSky user BlueSky, DOOTSKY, who notes that a new product code label OSM can be uncovered on the Nintendo account portal page. They state that requires the OSM product code return an image of the Switch 2, while folks over at Reset Error claims that any other code results in an error message. So basically the person wrote, I think I discovered something interesting, but I have no idea what it implies. On Nintendo's account portal, there's an unusual model code under the name OSM. The Switch 2 model code name is BEE. The portal has an image for each Switch 2 bottles and requires OSM return an image of a Switch 2. Now, do I think we could see a Switch 2 Lite or a OLED Switch 2 to be exact? I would say it is possible. I would not be surprised if we see that during, the Switch 2's life cycle, though. It wouldn't surprise me if that does happen. But do I think we'll see anything this year, or at least this early in the Switch 2's life cycle? I believe probably not. I mean, the Switch 1 Lite and the Switch 2 OLED didn't really come until later into the Switch 1's life cycle, which took a while before getting there and all. I mean, the Switch OLED came out around the same time Metroid Dread came out, to be exact. So I just don't think Nintendo's going to release a Switch 2 Lite or Switch 2 OLED this early or anything like that. That's not to say it couldn't happen. I do believe it will happen and all. I just don't think it would happen this early, to be exact, though. So, but time will ultimately tell if that's the case or not. But I just don't think it's going to happen right away and all. That said, I do see Nintendo, like I said before, I do see Nintendo could do something like this. After all, they do want to extend, the Switch's life cycle. They did that with the Switch 1 that ultimately led to, the Switch 2 coming out in 2025. So I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo is looking at doing a Switch 2 Lite or Switch 2 OLED to sort of extend, the Nintendo Switch 2's life cycle, which I do believe it probably is. I think it could last as long as the Switch 1 does, maybe more. That's a possibility, but I would say it's too early to tell if that will be the case or not. So, but overall, I would say, do I think a Switch 2 Lite or a Switch 2 OLED will happen? I believe at some point down the road we'll probably see something like that, though. But like I said, I think it's way too early for something like a Switch 2 Lite or Switch 2 OLED. At least that's how I'm looking at it and all. Okay, this concludes this My 2 Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about the Nintendo CEO president talk about being coy on a price increase, possibly for the Switch 2? Do you think a price increase is going to happen? And if so, what price, how high do you think Nintendo could raise the price for the Switch 2? And what are your thoughts about basically their stock dropping like a negative 33% though? Do you think this is something to worry about, or do you think some people are blowing it way out of proportion and it may not be as huge of a deal as some people are making it sound like it is? What are your thoughts about these GameStops being closed and all? Do you think it's you disappointed to see some of these GameStops close? Were any GameStops in your area by any chance affected by this closure by any chance? And what are your thoughts about the possibility of a Switch 2 Lite and a Switch 2 OLED? Do you think Nintendo will release a Switch 2 Lite or a Switch 2 OLED? Do you think they'll still stick with this current Switch 2 design right now in any way? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you do like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you'd like. You could do it through PayPal me, Patreon, or Steam Labs. Links will be in the description of this video, again, assuming you're watching this either on YouTube or Patreon. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye!